We begin this morning with a case of a YouTuber who did something really, really dumb for clout, as so many YouTubers and social media people do. We do love the clout. Heck, I love clout. I'm a YouTuber. I'd like some clout. Clout is great. But, maybe not, certain things. Like, it's just a prank bro, which has led to people being shot, for example, because, we're faking an assault. But sometimes the people they're faking it on don't know. That's happened before. We've had self-defense situations with YouTubers. The YouTubers went in and pretended to do an armed robbery. Didn't end well for them. And this particular case of a YouTuber where it didn't end well, this guy purposefully crashed his plane during a sponsored video. So apparently someone was willing to fund this endeavor of purposefully crashing his plane for the clout, which is really dumb because once you jump out of a plane, it kind of continues to fly in an uncontrolled manner. And, it might fly into something or someone or otherwise cause problems because, no one is controlling the plane. Fortunately, that didn't happen. Unfortunately, he lied to the federal government about it. And so he's going to prison. So let's learn a little bit more about what this YouTuber did and the stupid. A YouTuber who deliberately crashed his plane to gain notoriety and make money agreed to plead guilty to obstructing a federal investigation. All right, so what happened is he reported the plane crash to the National Transportation Safety Board. Unsurprisingly, when you're operating a plane, if things go wrong, the government would like to know about it. This is one of the things that they're going to tell you about when you're getting your pilot's license. In the event that something goes wrong, we'd like to know because it's kind of important, because we'd like to know about air safety and transportation safety and stuff like that. So he reported, as he was supposed to the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, who does the investigations for plane crashes and occasionally other things. They'll do investigations sometimes for serious road incidents. Sometimes they do all kinds of investigation. Well, he said to them, okay, I crashed my plane. NTSB said, where? He said, I don't know. But he did know. He went there and he picked up all the parts of his plane and then destroyed the parts of his plane, which somewhat interfered with the federal government's ability to investigate the crash because they no longer had a plane to look at because he lied to them about not knowing where it was. He did, and then destroyed the evidence. So, yeah. So he pled guilty to interfering with the federal investigation in response to this for destruction and concealment with intent to impede a federal investigation. Carries a maximum penalty of 20 years. Of course, he won't get that, but he'll definitely get some time. The Los Angeles District Court may impose a lesser sentence. They will. Of course, 20 years is a max, but he doesn't seem to have any record and things like that. So probably not that much time, probably just a couple years, but a couple years in prison still is not pleasant. He is scheduled to appear in court in the coming weeks. The DOJ has told the press that at the time he's not yet pled guilty, but, met an agreement. He will then plead guilty and then meet with the probation officers, which will draft the pre-sentencing investigation report, something we also heard about recently when it came to the murders of Lori Vallow, right? Same thing, right? The federal government does the investigative report too. Here it will be a little bit more interesting than with Lori Vallow because the end conclusion in Lori Vallow is how about life? The result here a little bit more up in the air, so to speak, because his history and the severity of this and his cooperation lead to a more nuanced calculation. So how that will come out a little bit more to be determined. If he then pleads guilty, they will schedule a hearing to have it and then ultimately a sentence. The lawyer said that he's taking full responsibility for his mistaken judgment and hopes to move past it and use his status as a world-class sports athlete. He was an Olympian on top of everything. So he is a world-class athlete. He was an Olympian. I think he placed 9th in his sport in the Olympics, which, 9th at the Olympics is still pretty world-class. If you're 9th in the world at something, that's still pretty good. So, we'll give him credit. And he wants to use his influencer to be a source of good for society. The former snowboarder An expert pilot and skydiver hatched a scheme to allegedly deliberately crash his plane. He did it because he confessed. After securing sponsorship and agreeing to promote a company's wallet in a video. The company had not yet been named, and there's no mention of wallets in the video. So I'm not quite sure how that was supposed to work, but we did it for Ridge Wallet or something. I don't know. I'm not sure which wallet company it is, but yeah. And here we see him exiting his plane with GoPros from every possible angle, just by mere coincidence. And he's already wearing a parachute because that's something pilots do, not? The video has 3.3 million views. It starts with him flying over a national forest. About a minute and a half into the video, the propeller slows to a stop and he starts cursing. Then basically immediately jumps out of the plane. So 30 seconds after the propeller stops running, he jumps out of a plane, which doesn't seem like the correct emergency procedures. I've seen footage before of planes, like these kinds of planes, small planes, having incidences in the air. And they tend to try to, fix the problem. But he tries to just jump out immediately with a parachute he happens to be wearing. Footage from the cameras, which are just mounted all over the plane by sheer coincidence, and his selfie stick, also sheer coincidence, show him parachuting into a dry bush area where he incurs minor injuries and is exposed to poison oak. He had initially denied that this was all a setup. No, I really crashed my plane. It wasn't a setup. It was totally for real. Okay. The real trouble began when he started by reporting the crash to NTSB, as he's supposed to do, which then informed him that he's responsible for preserving the wreckage. So the agency told him that, we'd like to examine the wreckage. Jacob told NTSB he determined the crash location because he didn't know it, but he did. The FAA launched its own investigation, and then he started lying to the feds, which is also illegal. You can't lie to the feds. First, he said he couldn't determine the crash location, but he did. He knew where it was. He then retrieved the stuff. Then he drove it to the airport where he detached the parts and tossed them out. So he threw them into a bin. The plea agreement says this was done with the intent to obstruct. The lies, of course, didn't stop there. When federal investigators asked Jacob how he crashed, he admitted in his plea agreement that he falsely indicated that the plane had lost power and an engine quit after takeoff. You can't lie to the feds. It's 18 USC 1001. Okay? You can't lie to the federal government. So, when you told them, oh, it's because it wasn't working. Yeah. He initially claimed he couldn't find any safe landing options, but there appeared to be a field not far from where this was that seemed to be reachable. So, yeah. Of course, unsurprisingly, the FAA revoked his license because they noted that he made no attempt to contact air traffic control, restart the engine, or look for safe areas to land the plane, even though there were some available. So, yeah. The FAA determined that he violated FAA rules by operating the aircraft in a careless or reckless manner. Yeah, purposely jumping out of an aircraft is pretty much definitionally reckless because the aircraft is going to go places. You don't know where it's going to go because it's uncontrolled. In addition to admitting to lying, he also lied to the media repeatedly, telling the New York Times, for example, I happily said I did not purposely crash my plane for views. He said he could see why people would think it was staged, but denied it. He did it. Experts, including flight instructors and aviation lawyers, have told the New York Times there seem to be signs that the video was a put-on. Yes, like the 9 GoPros from like every possible angle and the selfie stick, and the fact he was already wearing a parachute at the time are some tip-offs. The attorneys looking at this have also expressed frustration that it was staged because it's obviously unsafe. No reasonable person flies an airplane with the intention of jumping out and allowing the aircraft to just fly off. It goes against everything a pilot stands for. Safety is pretty paramount. Yeah, one would think, but he did it for the clouts and the views, and now he's going to jail. Thus, that brings us to the end of the attention for the moment of this case of a YouTuber who uploaded a video called "I Crashed My Airplane," in which he jumped out of an airplane for the clickbait, and then proceeded to lie to the federal government about it and destroyed the evidence. And he has pled guilty to the obstruction, and which faces a maximum of 20 years. He won't get that, but he's going to get something. So, don't lie to the federal government. Don't purposefully crash your plane. Try not to, just blatantly be a complete idiot in the pursuit of the social clout. And that, for the moment, brings us the end discussion of the story.